Hello to all my friends, foes, newfangled hoes, bros, and whatever you want to call yourself. All the timeless children out there. This is Tay Matsuko back with arguably the most important Director Speaks update to this point in the production. Um, Not to undersell anything that I've said previously or anything said by anyone else on this channel with regards to the Indie Idol project, but this is almost certainly going to be the most important piece of information that I will release, and I'm not even going to say that much about the actual decisions being made. So let's get right into it. Come on, Discord, you can't do this to me right now. So, as has been made explicitly clear to this point, the first piece that will be worked on by the Indie Idol project is a cover of Lazowide's Diamond City Lights. That song name has been mentioned in every single video that anyone has made on this channel so far. And in Ray's original video discussing the art direction for the song, they mentioned the fact that whereas the original version of the song was centered around purely Illyra, Pomu, and Finana, the Lazulite members of Niji En's first generation, the version that we are producing here will have significantly more voices involved and significantly more primary solo vocalists. To be specific, there are 7. At the point at which Ray released their video, there were only 6. We made an ultimate decision later down the line to turn a verse later in the song that is usually sung by all members into a solo because a lot of people were having difficulty figuring out the rhythmic pattern of that section when progressing through the whole thing. So as to not reveal anything about the soloists, I have covered the names of as many of the participants in the project with my own body as I possibly can, though a keen-eyed viewer can surely figure out some of the names through my Twitter or through looking into the back corner of the screen behind my head. So effectively what I'm going to do is go verse by verse, and we are going to look at what I am looking for in a performer for each of the particular solos that is affiliated with Diamond City Lights. So let's hop right into the lyrics. So Diamond City Lights begins with what is a barely accompanied version of this first verse, which is sung by Alira Pandora in the original recording, and is, of the primary vocalists, the lowest arrangement. Alira has said on stream that she didn't like how low the songwriters arranged for her to sing this, but effectively what this meant is I had 2 choices when working through what my expectation was for someone performing solo number 1. And that was either they can sing it in Alira's original register, or they can transpose it just enough up that it doesn't ruin the tonality that is developed in the original song. This was one of the solos that I expected to have more submissions for, but the majority of the people who would have submitted for 1 decided to switch their energies to auditioning for solo number 2 or solo number 5. And so ultimately, my first choice in pre-production would end up being my only choice for solo 1. And they actually meet all of my expectations to the dime. Like many of the members of the IIP, this performer was not at their full strength when they made their audition recording. The raw vocals of that I will not release myself, but who knows, you might see it on their Twitter at some point after this video goes live. But safe to say, I am very happy with the person who will be performing solo 1. Now, solo 2 was one of the more hotly contested solos within the pool of available solos for people to perform. And I think the reason for that is pretty straightforward. It's one of the more catchy, witty, and I'd say iconic verses out of the first 3. It's sung by arguably the most popular of the 3NE Gen 1 girls, that being Pomu. And it's sung in a middle register between the low end from the first solo and the high end from the third solo that falls into a comfortable range for a lot of people that I don't think is really there otherwise. Which brings me to my first distinct thing that I want to point out about the vocal production behind the song. Because of the interest in some of these solos that was expressed from across the project, the majority of the solos, with the exceptions being the first and final solo, will have at least one secondary line of vocals recorded to develop harmony with the primary vocalist. The majority of these harmony lines will be handled by one man, an absolute legend whose name you almost certainly have not heard of. He's a newcomer to the VTuber scene, but he picked up the music at a rate I would never have expected and now serves as sort of the rhythmic backbone for almost all of the verses. As for Solo 2, the person who is getting Solo 2 actually submitted a recording of Solos 1 through 3 and basically said, I will take any one of these three. Have your pick of the litter, Tay. And I was very happy with all of their recordings. The primary distinguishing factor here is that for Solo 2, they were spot on with both pitch and rhythm, which is something that, with as many inexperienced singers, and even with some of the more experienced singers within this group, was incredibly difficult to find on more than a few occasions. And I'll get into that later with the methods that I intend to use to sort of help people who are struggling rhythmically to develop into the rhythmic sense that they need. But safe to say, I think with the combination of the soloist from Solo 1 layering on top of the soloist from Solo 2, we will have a very cool dynamic for the way that this second verse develops out. Moving on to the third solo, my purple solo. Hopefully you can see it fine. This one, I had 2 submissions initially, and one of them stood out immediately. It was performed by the performer that I had most hoped would be auditioning for the most difficult songs, one of the most experienced performers in my group, someone who has external cover work experience and real life experience in singing, and generally was one of the people that as soon as I heard their recording, I put their name down on my boss sheet as being responsible for covering this solo. And I think they met everything I expected. Whereas the other 2 solos so far, I've been willing to allow a little bit more variation in the vocals in terms of the octaves and the actual reach of a particular song. This is one of the ones where, because it leads into the chorus with that top note on the last line of the third solo, you can't really have a vocalist singing it down too much, because if they do so, that transition of the alone into the Diamond City Lights lead in of the main chorus doesn't line up quite the way you want it to. And so I needed someone to sing this solo as well as someone to sing solo number 5, who are comfortable with the register of the original vocal take, which is some of the most difficult material wrapped into this entire song. But luckily, I had someone who was willing to step up, was the only person who submitted an official take for this solo, and this solo only. I had a few people submitting for multiple solos, but this was one that had only one exclusive selection of solo number 3 and someone who submitted for both solos number 3 and 6. Moving on past the chorus, I'm not going to really talk about chorus production. It's going to be a big ensemble thing with all 14 voices mixed in there, 15 voices. Solo number 4. The main difficulty of solo number 4 is that is a slightly upwards transposed version of solo number 1 that happens after a tougher rhythmic entrance of basically having to count after the chorus. Luckily, due to the production style of the Indie Idol project, Soloist 4 will just get to record this and do it to their best of their abilities, and in post we will make it work with the timing. Though if, and only if, they are able to do a chorus take into a solo 4 take with proper timing, then I will be even more impressed than I was with this person originally. They were one of the most excited for me to release the audition results, which, by the way, hasn't even happened yet as I'm recording this video. How maniacal is that? I'm talking about people without giving names and talking about what I was looking for, and they won't even see this video until after I've made the announcement in the Discord, and you guys won't ever get to know until we actually start recording. It's brilliant marketing, actually. Pat on the back, or I'd pat myself on the back if I wasn't time frozen on the right side of my screen. Now, Solo 5 is the most difficult solo for me to cast because Solo 5 has a lot of potential variation. You can go for someone who sings it rhythmically perfect and also is able to possibly have complete control of the original key, but in their audition take had to take it down a little bit for comfort's sake, but did not mess up a single step of the rhythm. Or you can go for someone with the clear vocal chops to sing the piece to its fullest potential, whose if their confidence was amped to 11, would be belting this out like it's a Broadway musical banger. Or you can do what I did, and you can put all of them on the same track together with what is effectively going to be the rhythmically talented singer will be on the front end of the mix. Our master man himself will be in the background giving a low end, and then synchronously the ultra talented vocalist who struggled a little bit with the rhythm will be able to use the takes of the other two singers to maximize their performance. And ultimately, in the final mix, I hope to be able to fully showcase both of these amazing performers side by side in the mix for solo number 5. Now, here we get on to the most controversial and difficult decisions that I had to make. And it's not even to do with the casting of these songs, because the casting of 6 and 7 was incredibly. This is solo 7, by the way, that I'm highlighting right here. Was incredibly simple. The people who tried out for them were incredible, and I knew who I wanted to do each one on the spot. But the controversy comes from the fact that this right here, solo number 6, which you see in like the purplish red color, was not originally a solo in the initial track. It was a trade-off piece between different members of Lazulite that was contingent on their ability to record sequentially and record in the same space effectively. That's how you're able to get a seamless transition between vocal parts, that plus masterful direction and counting. And with my aforementioned fear of people with musical inexperience having rhythm sense issues, no offense to anyone involved in the project, I decided that the coolest thing that I could possibly do here would be just turn it into a solo. But like every other solo that has any level of variance from the one voice we throw a couple of other vocalists onto backup, one of which has a solo in the earlier second half of the song, and one of which is just our Magic Man himself. And this was one of the ones where if you were in the Discord and you saw the reactions from the people in the Discord to a very specific person's very specific take of this solo, you would have a pretty good sense of who has solo 6. And this was the first person that I put in a box with a star and said they could audition for every other solo. They're singing number 6. They had the inflection, the tone, the intonation, the rhythm all on point. And it's going to provide a perfect transition into the final chorus. And coming out of the final chorus, you have solo 7. And I'm a selfish bastard. Pardon my language. I'm surrounded by so many talented people, and I get to work with so many talented people. There's nothing I could think of that was better to do than, instead of giving it to another talented person, I would shoehorn myself into this final verse as the soloist before reincorporating everyone back in for the So Let It Shine and one massive 14-person resonance. Because I will not be singing there with dead vocal cords. There will be a 14-person gorgeous resonance on the final So Let It Shine. That is my insider baseball. That is how I went through the mindset of selecting my soloists in the least revealing way possible, because I have to keep some intrigue after all. If you have any questions about the IIP, or if you want to ask me anything about how things are going or provide help, you can reach out to me at @I_Masico on Twitter. I'll put my Twitter in the description. And please do like and subscribe to this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because things are starting to get heated up. And there will be more and more cool announcements coming. So I'll see you guys in the future. Peace.